Vaccination is the only way to contain the coronavirus pandemic. We have vaccine shortages all over the country, including Assam. But then vaccination is a must, and we have to take the vaccines whenever they are available. But how do these vaccines work? To understand, we have with us our very own scientist, Dr. Donkupar Syiem of the Northeastern Hill University, to explain to us how the vaccines, the first dose work, how safe does it make us, and the gap between the first dose and the second dose. We welcome you to another edition of the Doctor Speak at G+. Let us listen to Dr. Syiem and understand how vaccines work. We have with us Dr. Donkupar Syiem, who's a professor of biochemistry and a very well-known scientist in the region. He's at the Northeastern Hill University in the Department of Biochemistry, where he's also been the head of the department. One of his specialty is on diabetes, and there are several other specialties that I have here, and I would like to read out. His research expertise include enzymology, medical biochemistry, natural products, ethnopharmacology, medicinal plants, and indigenous knowledge, drug discovery, and biodiversity conservation. Welcome, Dr. Syiem, to this conversation on COVID-19, and it'd be nice to hear from you about the things that we all are looking forward to from an expert. And we would like to start by asking you this question about vaccines, because everybody is trying to now wonder whether the vaccination program in India is on track. And if it is on track, why are people not getting vaccines, and what is the way out?
Well, at the very outset, first, I would like to thank you, Bidak, and your team, and G+ for inviting me to share a few information that I know of. But at the outset, I would also like to state that I'm really not an expert on if you consider an expert on virology, microbiology, and somebody who is very informed about coronaviruses. But basically, definitely as a science teacher and somebody who has done research on areas related to biochemistry, we definitely share some common knowledge regarding the biochemical, the nature of how this virus works, not in detail, but definitely as any scientists will understand, because our training as such is to understand the various aspects of life. And a virus, like any other models that we work, is also an entity that shares some of the commonality in terms of its, progression, in terms of its infection, in terms of its transmission, in terms of its multiplication. So in that context, yes, I would agree that I do know something. But primarily, I've had the pleasure of also giving this talk with NHM. And before I actually get into the vaccine, I would like to share a few things about which probably any lay person, given the flood of information that has come through the social media and through media, both print and including the social platform like WhatsApp and Facebook, we are flooded with it. So there can be a little confused state for everybody. So let me try to first, walk you through the process of how to understand this virus. Number one, you see this ongoing pandemic, it's like a war. This is what I liken. I draw this analogy of our battle with this virus as a war. So what happens in a war, right? So in a war, the first thing a country does is to assess its strength and then train, soldiers. So basically, you have to first recruit recruitment of soldiers, train them in special facilities, and then deploy them to fight against the virus. Okay. Now we have in this virus an enemy that is very not on its own, but it's basically a process of evolution that makes this enemy, this virus, very wily smart in that sense. If you consider, a piece of genetic material as smart, it can be considered smart because over the, 3.5 billion years of our evolution, this virus has had the opportunity to evade defenses in hosts, a variety of hosts that includes human. So these strategies which it adopts to evade is called mutation. Okay, so when something mutates, that means it changes itself, its form. Okay, and by changing, it definitely can fight the so-called immune system that happens to be in any living organism, including humans. So now in a war, we battle it out. Okay, so the first engagement is that in the context of humans, we have a defense system called immunity, and immunity has basically two what we call categories. One is called the innate immune system, which is a very rapid form of defense. The moment a foreign entity enters a body, we immediately engage. Okay, so there's a battery of arsenal that is employed in this engagement. Okay, I will not get into the details, but all I can say at this point of time that it is very generalized form of defense. It's like saying that when you see the enemy, you just bombard with shells and airplanes. So it is indiscriminate. Right. Okay, so that's how. Then you roll in the tanks with a lot of firepower. You kill, you bombard. So this is what happens. We have specialized cells which does that. Okay, and then when some of the enemy, which is the virus here, when it can evade because it can hide in tissues and cells, and through mutation, it can be looked upon as your own self, in which case your defense system will not mount an attack, and that's how it gets in. So in such cases, the second level of defense is mounted, which comes in the form of a specific immune system. Okay, that is a slower response, and that's why we talk in the course of a vaccination process. We say the first dose. First dose is a priming dose, where basically you prepare. I talk about recruitment, training, and then of course deployment. So that recruitment is what happens in the first dose. You prime. You tell your body that this is the phase of the enemy. Okay, this is the phase of the enemy. So when the second assault comes from when the real assault comes from the virus, you are already well prepared to combat the enemy. So that is where the second dose is required. That gives you bolster up the defense system of your body, and then you mount such an attack on the virus that it will lead to neutralization of the virus. Okay, and the destruction of the virus.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject here, just for our viewers to also understand that the metaphor that you've used is about the human body, the system, versus an external agent, which is the virus. So here's, I would just like to ask you, if you're talking about the immune system, and where you said that we have the first virus, the vaccine, and then we have the second vaccine, which is the booster, but we keep hearing doctors and medical experts saying that even after getting the second dose, and we've seen that happen, people are still immune to infection. How does that happen?
See, because when you mount a defense system, it's not going to happen instantaneously. So it's all a question of time. Because when you prepare, for example, if you say that we are preparing a war against an enemy, to prepare, the army takes quite some time. Okay, so you are vulnerable within that period of preparation. So here we are talking about, see, the primary dose basically tells your body that, okay, this is the phase of the enemy, start mobilizing your defenses. Okay, when you give the second dose, which we have seen that now it has been extended to,
12
16
to 16
weeks,
weeks.
12 to 16 weeks. Okay, so when you give the second dose, your body is already prepared that this is the phase of the enemy. So we have to identify, the enemy is identified. So then your body is making a huge effort to mobilize and prepare the armory to fight the battle with this known enemy. So this is what happens in the primary and the secondary, the second booster dose. Now, during the period when you get the second booster dose, okay, the booster dose, you can still be vulnerable in the 2 weeks time. Generally, they say it's probably about 2 weeks that when your antibody titer really goes up. Okay, when it goes up, then you're well defended. But in that period, when the antibody titer, the T cell receptors, all those so-called specialized forces are still preparing, that is when you're vulnerable. So it could be that is one possibility.
So then coming to the
somebody has got,
right. So
because we don't have the data, unless until you have the data, you will not know whether that person got the viral attack during that period or after the period. If we don't have the data, one can't make a comment.
Right, but insofar as this decision by the government is concerned, the 12 to 16 weeks, and we've heard discussions that it could be, the reasons could be scientific, or the reasons also could be availability. It could be a combination of both. What are your views on this, sir?
Well, I would say this. It's you can call it a coincidence, or it can, grace. But definitely, from all studies that I've seen, reported in many journals, including Lancet, they have put this 12 to 16 week as, the gap between the first dose and the second dose. You can go up as long as possible. Okay, of course, the booster dose, remember, has to be in a period, because there's still very inadequate number of data available. But so we are actually, the entire scenario with this corona is everything is kind of condensed. Everything is kind of shortened.
It is
evolving, right from the process of the vaccination. No, because of the vaccine that we have come up. Generally, a vaccine takes many years. Many of the viruses that we know of, there are no vaccine. It's a very long process. Right. But here in this corona, we've seen, because of the convergence of technology and science and the huge collaboration between various nations, has actually brought about a vaccine in as quick a possible time. So now, in the context of this vaccine and the gap that you mentioned, I don't think so any data has really been worked out. How long is the gap? You can go up to 16 weeks, or can we go further than 16 weeks?
But what about the level of the immunity of the person?
But the reports, some of the reports from US and Europe, they have actually stated that yes, one can go up to 16 weeks. And that's what a technical expert in the country has said, that you can go up to 16 weeks. Now, so basically, we're still safe till then.
I see.
See, what is important is for the viewers to know that when you get the primary dose, I think you are, to a little extent, already priming your body defense system to be prepared for the virus. Now, it can be 1%, 5%, 10%, 15% preparedness, okay? But that is still better than 0%. This is what I said in my video here, that even if you get only the first dose, you're still better prepared than a guy who has not received any dose. Because why? See, a vaccine contains what is called as an antigen, a piece of entity that belongs to the virus. Okay, now various vehicles have been used, various forms, mRNA virus, mRNA vaccines you've heard. We have, a viral vector vaccine. You know about an attenuated or a dead kill virus. Sometimes they use the cold virus, the adenovirus, as a vehicle to carry a piece of the gene of the coronavirus, which when you administer, now that coronavirus is only a part of the coronavirus, like the spike protein, okay, is used. So the other assembly or other genes of the virus which will enable it to multiply, that is not there. So basically, it's only a piece of that. So basically, when you expose it to a human body, your innate immune system, your specific antibody response mounts up. So you're already prepared. Okay. Now, if you don't, questions have come that, where they say, suppose I don't get the second dose, what happened?
Right.
Okay. So that is also possible now in India. We are battling with doses, right?
Right. So can I ask you a question? So you've mentioned about the gap and also about the likelihood of people not getting a second dose, because we are seeing that there is a shortage of vaccine, and we've heard from the government, we've heard from the health minister saying that the Covishield, finally, when they can be rolled out in terms of the numbers that can cover a large size of the population, it'll be not before August. And Covaxin also, we don't have enough. So probably a lot of people that are scheduled to get their second doses will not get. Now, are we to say then that people that have already got the 2 jabs are better protected, and therefore people who are waiting for the second jab and now the time has been extended, their situation is more vulnerable than the people who have already got the 2 jabs?
Definitely. I mean, those who have got the 2 jabs are better equipped to respond to in case they get a virus infection. Okay. But even the persons who get only the first jab, they are already slightly primed, but at least much better than a person who's not got any vaccine at all. Okay. Remember one thing about the immune system. When we give the first jab, you're priming, you're preparing, you're telling your immune system that there is this foreign entity that you have to prepare and mount an offense. Okay. In the second jabs, you really go through a huge mobilization of your body cells to fight against because you're anticipating that this virus is going to come. So rather than being taken off guard, you're actually in little amount, you're showing the face of the enemy. So you're prepared. See, it's like saying that when you fight in battle, you don't know your enemy, then you're a sitting duck. They can shoot you, okay? But in case you say that enemy wears this cap. So when the enemy wears a green hat, he's your enemy, or a blue hat.
You're able to recognize. You're able to then recognize.
So basically, you're telling your body that this is the face of the enemy. Right. Now, so basically, what happens then in the immune system? We have what is called as the memory cells. The immune system has memory. This is the most unique part of the immune system. It is able to remember. Okay. Now, over a period, say of about a year, those memory cells are still there in the body.
We'll just come to that. That's a very important point. We'll come to that. But I just also want to mention, because this is part of the decision that we are talking about, and you've mentioned with such scientific argument and basis in terms of how much a person can be protected by just taking the first jab than a person who's not taken the vaccine. And also, sir, I would like to inform you, you must have already seen for yourself on the news channels where they've mentioned that the UK has actually reduced the gap, and they are also using AstraZeneca. We are using AstraZeneca as Covishield, but the UK has actually reduced the gap from the 4 weeks that was there. They are planning to reduce it further. So therefore, I think the 2 different decisions for the same vaccine, and our situation is much more dire presently than the UK. So your take on that?
See, like I said, I don't have access to the latest information, and I don't think so any data is probably available about this gap. You know, you see, for one to make any comment about which gap is the most ideal, one has to have access to those data. And right now, it is an evolving situation. I think even AstraZeneca probably don't have all the data. But see, the point is, in the immune system, it is a range. It is not that you say 1 week or 2 weeks. It is a range. As I told you, the human body is a dynamic system. We are always, there's a wear and tear, make and break, okay? So you go through a cycle. So basically the booster dose is basically to ensure that your body still remember enemy, because you see, like any system, if you don't see for a certain period of time, you tend to forget. So that's why the booster dose is necessary.
When do we administer the booster dose?
No, that's what I'm saying. The range is anything between 4 to 16 weeks. Okay. Some people, I mean, somebody might come up with a test and a study that says, okay, if you go after even 3 months, if you give a booster dose, you will still get a peak. Okay, but the peak may not be as high. See, it all depends on how much tighter your antibody defense system that produce the immunoglobulins, like IgM and IgG, as well as the T cell receptors. Basically, these are your acquired immune system. How big is the peak? That means the defense system that you can mount.
Right.
So you'll definitely mount a defense system, but the height of that defense system is not going to be known unless until you have access to this paper or study. Somebody has to do some work.
Thank you, Dr. Syiem, for providing a comprehensive understanding of how vaccines work and how vaccination is the only way out to contain the coronavirus pandemic.